Hello everyone, I am Ricky from Data Mastery, and today we are going to talk about AWS Glue DataBrew. What is Glue DataBrew? It is a visual data preparation tool, and you can clean and normalize data using the visual interface. It has over 200 transformers which are pre-built, and you can use them right away to clean up the data. You can also visually map the data lineage to understand your different sources and the transformation steps. And the best thing is that it is a no-code solution. You don't have to write any code for the transformation, cleansing the data, or normalize the data. It also allows you to do automation of your data cleaning and normalization tasks using jobs. And it integrates well with other AWS services like S3, Redshift, and RDS. Let's do a quick hands-on demo to see DataBrew in action. In this demo, I'll be using some dummy data to understand some of the pre-built transformations that DataBrew offers. Log into your AWS account, and the first thing that we need to do is to create an S3 bucket. Go to S3 Service and create a bucket. Let's name it Data Mastery DataBrew Demo. Keep all other settings as default and click on Create Bucket. Now I need to upload the sample data that I have. But before that, let me show you how the data looks like. This is a sample data which is basically about the customer orders. And you can see that here some of the orders are not having the order ID. So we are going to deal with the null values or the missing values. And I also want to transform the date in certain format, which is going to be year and then month and then day. Some of my values are having some white spaces. So I'm going to use a built-in transformer to clean up these white spaces. Now let's upload this data to S3 bucket. And click on Upload. Now that I have some dummy data uploaded to S3 bucket, it's time to set up the Glue DataBrew. Search for DataBrew service. The first thing that we need to do is to create a project. Let's call it DataBrew Demo. As you can see here, we can attach the recipes. Now, what is a recipe? A recipe contains the transformation steps. So whatever steps I'm going to configure for the transformation of data, all those steps will be part of my recipe. When you create a new project, a new recipe is also created. But if you have existing recipe, you can attach that as well with the project. But I will go ahead and create a new recipe. And then I need to define my datasets. So where is my dataset? I'm going to create a new dataset. And let's call it Customer Orders. And then I need to select S3 bucket. As you can see here, I have only one S3 bucket. So I'm going to select that. Next, if you have the data in some of the folders in your S3 bucket, you can put that folder name. If the data is at the root of your S3 bucket, you can just leave it as is. Next, you also have to define the file type. So in our case, the file type is CSV. And you can configure some additional settings like the delimiter is comma and the first row is a header. After you configure these additional configurations for your input data, next thing that we need to define is the permissions, which is an IAM role. So in this case, you can either pick your existing IAM role or you can create a new IAM role. Let's call it DataBrew Demo. And now click on Create Project. Now you can see that your project has been created, and what AWS is doing right now, it is provisioning compute. This is a serverless service, but it still needs a compute to run all the manipulation and transformation that you want to perform on your data. It will take a while for initialization, almost like 3 to 4 minutes. So I'll pause the video and I'll be back once this initialization will be completed. Now that the initialization has been completed and we can see the CSV data. The next thing that we need to do is to start creating transformations. So to do that, we need to add the step. So whatever step we are going to add, this will be added in the recipe. As you can see here, it is going to build your recipe. So click on add step. And the first step that we need to add is, let's handle the missing data. So we have some data where order IDs are missing. What I'm going to do in this case is to delete those records where the order ID is null. Search for missing values. And for the missing values, you can either remove the missing values or you can fill or impute missing values. In this case, I'm going to remove the missing values. Then it asks you the column name. In this case, the column is order ID. And I'm going to delete rows with the missing values. And the transformation applies to all the rows. Click on apply. And now you can see that all those records with the missing order ID have been deleted. Now let's add another step and transform the date. So click on this icon here, click on add step and search for date time format. Again, we have to select the column which is order date. And here we can specify the format that we want to apply on the set of data that we have. So I'm going to pick the first one, which is year, then month, then day. Again, apply to all the rows. And now you can see that the date format has been changed. The last step that I'm going to add in this recipe is to clean the white spaces. Again, add a new step and look for remove white spaces. And you can pick whatever the column name contains the white spaces, or you want to make sure that this column should not contain any white space. In this case, I will apply this on the customer name. So if by any chance the raw data contains white spaces in the customer name column, I'm going to clean that up as part of my transformation. So again, in the white spaces, it gives you some options. Do you want to clean all the white spaces or you want to clean leading and trailing spaces? This is what I'm going to select. And then apply to all the rows. Click on apply. Now you can see that I have added 3 transformation steps and apply that on my data. We have deleted the records with null order IDs. And we have changed the date format. We also applied the transformation to clean up white spaces on the customer name. Now that we have the required transformations that we wanted to apply on this data set, you can publish this recipe. So if you click on this publish link, it will actually publish the recipe that we just created. Click on publish. Now in order to automate this process, we can create the job. So click on create job. Give your job a name. Let's call it customer order transformation job. You can also configure where you want to send your output to. The default is S3, but it supports other integrations and services as well, like Amazon Redshift, JDBC connector, and Snowflake as well. And the file type of the output file is going to be CSV, comma separator. If you want to compress it, you can apply some compression. And if the output destination is S3, you can even store this into some another AWS account. But in our case, we will keep the output into the same account and mostly in the same bucket. So I have this one bucket and I will just create a new folder. And if you're running this in production, make sure that you use the separate S3 bucket for your output data. And then for the roles, you can either select an existing role or you can create a new role. So I'm going to say DataBrew job as the suffix of this role and click on create and run job. So now you can see that the recipe job for this particular job has been created. So you can go to the jobs and you can see the job is already running. Now what this job is doing, it is going to fetch the data from S3 and apply the transformation which we applied using the steps that we added in the recipe. And for the new set of data that gets dropped to the S3 bucket, the recipe will be applied and the transformations will happen and the output will be stored to the output folder in the S3 bucket. It will take a few minutes to complete the job. So I will pause the video and I'll come back once the job is completed. All right, so the job has been completed successfully. We should see an output file in the S3 bucket. So if we go to the S3 service, go to our bucket, and here's the output folder which gets created. And this is the transformed output file. So I will download this. And this is the transformed output on the right side of your screen. You can see that the date format has been changed, the null values for the order ID are removed, and the white spaces are also cleaned up. In fact, there were no white spaces to begin with, but even for the future data, if there are any white spaces, those will be cleaned up as well. Now going back to the DataBrew, click on recipes and you will see the recipe that we created. You can click on this and it will explain the steps that's been added in this recipe. You can also check the data lineage. So for this particular recipe, the data is coming from this S3 bucket and the dataset name is customer orders. Then we have this DataBrew demo project, which this recipe is associated with. And this is the version. And this version of the recipe contains 3 steps. Now the job that we created, that was executed only once. What if we want to schedule a job? So we can schedule a job as well. If you go to the jobs once again, select the job that we created, edit it, and here you can define the schedule. You can create a new schedule, let's say customer order schedule. Now it's going to be the recurring frequency, let's say 1 hour every day. You can also run this at a particular time every day, or the weekdays or the weekends, or you can even select some days. And finally, you can even run a cron job. So if I say recurring and I want to run it every, let's say 5 hours every day, starting at midnight, then click on add. And you can see that the job has been updated and the schedule that we created is already something that's applied to this job. And finally, don't forget to save it. So now your job has been configured to run on a schedule, which is after every 5 hours every day. Another thing that we can take a look is about the lineage or the project levels. If you go to the projects, click on project, and you can even click on the lineage here. So this will also give you the information about your sources and transformation. So you can see here, this is kind of similar. The source is your S3, your data set is customer orders. Then you have this project. This project has a recipe with 3 steps, and this transformation, it also tells you the transformation status, which was succeeded 5 minutes ago, and that is the 1 output, and this is the output location. So it is pretty good in understanding where your data is coming from, what kind of transformations are applied, and where are you storing your output data. So that's all about Glue DataBrew. Hope you enjoyed it. This is a pretty neat tool that you can use to run your transformations, cleanse the data, and you can put some scheduler in place so that the jobs can be triggered automatically. And it supports multiple output integrations as well. You can push the data to Redshift or even Snowflake, or even using JDBC connector, you can push the data to external sources. So that's all about AWS Glue DataBrew. Hope you like this video, and if you do, don't forget to subscribe our channel and like this video. Cheers.